gets away from Brookman. It's been 2,475 days since they've taken a playoff spot. Throw to first in time. The drought is over. A tidal wave is coming in. The West Michigan Whitecaps are first half Eastern Division champions.
It's a brass bonanza. You're not impressed, are you, Brandon?
I like the brass.
I'm just hanging out here, whatever.
It's fine. Yeah, it's hot out. Energy levels are being conserved.
Yes, it is. It's gonna be 90 degrees this weekend in the Motor City. So for those that are gonna be out this way, I'm gonna try to head out to Erie this weekend, as the Seawolves are looking to clinch a playoff berth themselves, and West Michigan made it happen Friday. One of the probably, again, every time I go to Lansing, spooky things happen in Lansing. It's just a thing that happens. Welcome to the Tiger Minor League Report podcast here at TigersMLReport.com. I am Rogelio Castillo. Sammy is Brandon Day. Chris Brown, rather, will be along with us shortly, but plenty to get to. But before we get that, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. We also have a Patreon. Thank you for anybody who has signed up to our Patreon. Again, we are now up to almost 100 members, and the more members we get, the more money we could make. That helps us with trips and all that jazz and gear, and maybe one day I can pay Brandon too. That would be nice to continue to do that. And but yeah, there's just a lot going on with that. And also you can check out or go to our Twitter and subscribe to our Twitter at Tigers ML Report. We also have a Facebook page and an Instagram that I am trying to be more proactive on doing too. So plenty to get to though, Brandon, as the Tigers lose 2 out of 3 to the Reds. Sunday's game was a little bit of sloppiness.
Yeah.
That was an ugly loss, Brandon.
Yeah, there haven't been very many like that. We haven't lost 2 games in a series all that often either. But to watch them booted around, the bullpen's been struggling, and then you end up with Vest with some kind of hopefully minor injury, but we don't really know yet. It was not a great weekend. It was fun to see Ellie Dela Cruz. And I've made myself feel better by reading a whole lot about the Red Sox and Craig Breslow and the absolute shite show going on over there with the Devers trade. Just to remind myself, we're still doing great. Everything's pretty good here. So, but it was not ideal. That's putting it mildly. Jack Flaherty, I think, had given up 6 runs in his 5 previous starts combined, if I'm not making a mistake there. And then, just has one of those outings he always seems to have where he gets kind of lit up. They back him off the fastball, started hitting that. So then he starts, throwing too many sliders, and they're hitting that. Guys are kicking the ball around. We're all getting mad.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's going to happen. We're kind of in a little bit of a lull for the Tigers. They're still doing great, but haven't exactly been, red hot raging the last couple weeks. So hopefully we can just get this jalopy to the All-Star break and give everybody a little bit of a rest. Start thinking about what they're going to trade for and go from there.
Yeah, and the Tigers did make a move today. They signed Carlos Hernandez, who was with the Royals. He was with Philly. If you look at the numbers on paper, it doesn't seem like a lot to work with, but the fastball is in a 94 percentile. He's got good extension. He's got good extension on his stuff. So maybe it's the work of Dr. Robert Lung and the Federer team they looked at something and see what he can offer, because in terms of velocity, he is one of the hardest throwing Tigers that they have now. And as far as what's going on with Vest with his pinky, there's people that are sacrificing their pinkies to make him healthy again. But there's been no update. The Tigers are going to keep that kind of ho-hum for a while until, so.
Yeah, trying to squeeze information about them, about injuries is not an easy task. I mean, he felt something in his pinky, and that could be anything from, he's got some kind of irritation in the joint, or it's inflamed, or he has an ouchie, all the way up to, ulnar nerve problems. So we're just going to have to wait and see how it goes. I mean, he wasn't losing velocity, but he was obviously not at his best yesterday. And yeah, I mean, the bullpen doesn't have a whole ton of stopper options. It's been pretty much vesting Canley going 8 to 9 innings. So yeah, not ideal. There are certain, there's a lot of things that the Tigers can replace. One thing they can't really replace right now is their best reliever. Looking through the minor leagues, as we both know, there are hard throwers, there are guys with good stuff, but there really isn't anybody particularly ready to jump right in and take over, unless they go all in and immediately throw Troy Melton in there and decide to kind of cut the cord on him working as a starter this year, which they might eventually do. But I kind of imagine they don't want to do that any sooner than they have to. So Carlos Hernandez, I think he averages like 17.7 IVB on his fastball. If they can kind of tune that up more to like 19, if they've got some idea about how to get a little more hop for him, because he is really fastball heavy. And as you said, he can touch triple digits. He's usually up 98, 97, a little higher. So he just doesn't really have a great secondary pitch that I can tell. So maybe, he's got a splitter that has always been, kind of intermittently effective, but isn't a very good pitch. Maybe they can tweak that. Maybe they can get a little more movement out of his slider. It's easy to trust that these guys know what they're doing. And when they target somebody, they usually have a plan. So, we'll see how it goes, but it's not ideal in the sense that he doesn't have any options either. So he's going to have to get plugged right in. And the reason they took him, they have an open spot from DFAing John Brebbia, of course, on the 40 man, but he's got to replace someone on the active roster. And that makes you think that they're pretty sure Will Vest is probably going to have to, spend a little time on the IL at least. So all in all, not ideal. Not a bad pickup, but the situation is not what you want it to be right now. But on the other hand, 19 games over 500 and holding a huge lead in the division. So
yeah, and that does help too in Cleveland. Cleveland's imploding a little bit. There was a Kansas City had a players only meeting over the weekend too. So there's a couple things going on brewing right now. Again, Royce Lewis, like every time when the clock essentially when the clock, like a broken clock, it's always right twice a day. Royce Lewis is going to hit the IL, and he's injured again. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of Twins fans and their feelings, but that sucks. I mean, it really sucks. And you look at the Tigers right now too, with Kerry Carpenter kind of also a little hobbled up a little bit with his hamstring. AJ said he's fine. You agree to disagree, but he is the manager of the team, so I'm not going to go against that. But there's a couple of things. Like I said, we're like last week. By the way, Chris will not be joining us. Chris is not feeling well, and he said that he did do the slides, so but he will not be joining us tonight. But he will be back on Thursday, so I hope he feels better. Probably because he was outside in the heat working on the pool, and I guarantee you that's what happened. So feel better, sir. But no, it's a thing where I look at, last week when we were talking about like, are we really nitpicking? The reality is, I mean, as much baseball is again, it is June 16th. And as somebody mentioned in the chat, having expectations is fine. No, Ricky Velasco is not the answer, Stan. Sorry, I'm not going to tell you that right now. No. There is a couple things that you are concerned with, and the bullpen has been the main concern. I mean, the numbers are on the surface fine, but now you have Vest gone. Alex Lang has been throwing off the mound, but you don't know what that's capable of. Pat Caputo did a cherry-picking tweet about Matt Manning and his stats, and it's like, you have to look a little deeper, my friend, because if Matt Manning wanted to be up here, wouldn't he have been called up 3 times already? I mean, you look at that, like that kind of a thing where the Tigers really want him up here, he would be up here. And so, I don't know. And even at Double-A right now, it's still, Jake Miller's still out. He's not going to be pitching until another few weeks. So you have that. Montavo out. It's a hodgepodge rotation right now. I mean, really, all eyes are on Melton at this point on what he's able to do and what have you. And so, I don't know, Brandon, the one thing I am concerned with, even with the big division lead, which is fine. I mean, this is that you win to do this, and it helps out big time. especially when your team is kind of like in the I don't necessarily the dog days of summer. I mean, it's going to be hot this week, but you're right in the middle of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time where it's hard to come up with stories. Everyone's busy with other things. The Tigers are so far ahead that everyone's mind is already turning toward the second half and going into the postseason. And at the same time, yeah, I mean, you see like some of the nagging injuries some of these guys are carrying and playing with. You know, I mean, AJ Hinch can say Kerry Comforter is fine, but fine isn't a diagnosis. We all saw him trying to run the bases. As Carpenter has said, when he's running in a straight line, he feels 100%. But taking the turn, putting the stress on the side of the knee, and how that affects the hamstring. He's just obviously not running his best, and he's not hitting. He's swinging at everything, and he's striking out quite a bit, not hitting for his usual power. Something's not right. So, AJ can say he's fine, but that's just putting us off. I assume there's nothing so serious that, they think he's going to hurt himself or he wouldn't be out there. This would be the time to put him on the IL for 2 weeks and get him right. But clearly they think he's going to hold up and he's going to be okay. But that's a problem. Parker Meadows has really struggled with the bat since he got back, hasn't been swinging it well. The offense in general has been okay, but everything has just kind of regressed a little bit back to like all these units just being like average to above average, except for the starting pitching. And the starting pitching is still good. I'm not worried about Flaherty. We're going to see Mize against the Pirates tomorrow. He should have a good outing against that offense. If he doesn't, maybe people start getting a little more worried about him. The only reinforcements you really have coming are Reese Olson. Like, you hope that Reese Olson will be back maybe after one more rehab start, and then that kind of opens up some options. Then you don't have Brant Herter having to be used as an opener for Cater Montero. Maybe you send Montero down. Maybe you keep Montero and use him in the bullpen. You can use then you can use Herter, however you need to, rather than having him pitch the first inning here and there. That will open up some things. And Reese Olson is probably their second best starter. But if he can't throw his changeup, or if he's still having irritation in the finger when he's throwing the changeup, which he didn't use at all in his first rehab start, according to the plan, like they just want to keep his arm built up and keep him in pitching shape, and didn't want to test the ring finger too much with that pitch. But that's his best pitch. He's going to have to test it. And if that becomes a problem, then Reese Olson isn't going to be as effective as he's been over the first half. But I am looking for that. Reese Olson's going to come back at some point in the next week, 2 weeks, something like that. He should be back in the rotation, and that will give them some options. In the meantime, they can work with Hernandez. As you say, I mean, they've had, cause to call someone up if they were pitching, as well as maybe, Pat Caputo wants Matt Manning to be pitching. I think Matt Manning can help them, perhaps. He does seem to have settled in as a reliever. His last 5 or 6 outings have been pretty darn good. He gave up like 1 solo home run, but I don't think he's given up another hit or a walk in 5 appearances, about 6 innings. But that's not much more than a week of having it dialed in. So
Yeah.
They haven't cut him off the 40-man. So it's true they haven't called him up, but at the same time, he's still got a 40-man roster spot. So at some point, they're going to have to try it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to just have him down there dying on the vine all this year and then get released at the end of the year because he's out of options. So I'm sure we'll see him. You guys have talked a lot, more than anybody else locally, certainly, about the difference in ball between AA and when you get up to AAA and the majors. Dylan Smith is still kind of going through that transition, so I wouldn't give up on Dylan Smith. But he too is someone who, might help you out in the 6th, 7th inning, but he's not a guy that you want closing the games out. He's not the guy you want, coming into a jam with 3 runs on and a 1 or 2 run lead late in the game. So yeah, I mean, overall, it's not ideal, and the Tigers are well positioned to weather this, but they are weathering something right now. It's not the best. So yeah, I mean, they have some good things. Wenzel Perez has been swinging the bat great. Yeah. It's nice to have a couple guys who are hot like that, who are kind of keeping it going. Javi Baez has heated back up a little bit. McKinstry's still swinging a bat pretty well after, like a little slump. Those guys have held up better than I think people expected. So, all in all, things are fine. And I'll use AJ Hinch's words there. Things are fine. But the outlines of some problems that they're going to have to deal with over the next month going into the trade deadline are pretty clear right now. So
yeah, I mean, if there's no different timeline on Alex Lang yet. I would think probably anything would be after the All-Star game, if anything, or towards the end, maybe perhaps during the trade deadline as well. But it's the same thing with it's just kind of touch and go right now with that, because if he was even thrown out the mound doesn't necessarily mean anything until you put him in a situation like that. But as far as just if you're looking at other relievers down in Toledo, like Matt Sellinger, who's now in Erie, who's went back down to Erie. Again, it really, especially this week they went 0-6 against Omaha, and the bullpen looked really shaky at times. And so, really, I think it's just going to be the hot hand from here on out. I mean, if Manning continues to do this well into July, then yeah, of course, you're absolutely right, Brandon. He has a 40-man roster spot for a reason. They could they could do something with him and see what happens, but it really depends on if Federer and those guys wanted him here, he would be here, I think. And that's it goes without saying, but goes pretty, to me, it's pretty obvious. As far as why not getting out, getting a deadline, why not get in front of it now? There's some teams who are still convinced that they're in contention. And I know we're talking, we're going to we should talk about the Rafael Devers trade, because it did come out of nowhere. Everyone was like, what the hell is Boston doing? But the dysfunctionality in Boston's so bad right now. I mean, you had Roman Anthony going out there doing outfield drills in the public. You could have handled that a little differently, and they didn't. It's just dysfunctionality city all across the board. And so as far as even the return, Boston got was meh. And I mean,
and they didn't shop him. They did it like a deal in the night that they didn't want anyone to know was coming, because they're scared of the publicity that they're getting, which is weak stuff for a guy who makes millions of dollars and is supposed to be a top executive in this sport, to be afraid of the criticism you've been getting. You don't want to hear it anymore. And so what do you call it? Buster Posey in the night and ask him what he's willing to give. That whole
asshole.
That is some garbage. There's a lot of teams out there who are right here, talking to, media today saying, hey, I would have given up this, and this, they really screwed up. You've also, and the cracks are now showing in all these other ways where, former employees and everything are talking about the culture that Breslow has destroyed there, getting rid of, basically every staffer that was there under Theo Epstein and Hein Bloom, Dave Dombrowski, all that group is gone.
He's been isolated, essentially.
Yeah, he's isolated. He's self-isolated. And Devers was the last one from the 2019 World Series team too. So all those guys are gone. So, it's all your baby now, Craig, I guess. But, not ideal. And I think the mistake that people are making, though, is that they're assuming that Red Sox are in fire sale mode. And they're not. They're, a game over 500. They just called up Roman Anthony. They've called up Marcelo Mayer for some, for a look. They've got reasons to think that maybe they can make a run in the second half. And that speaks to why the Tigers, can look right now and see if there's someone to trade for, but there aren't as many teams that are, convinced that they're going to sell as you want. And so the teams that are willing to sell are holding out for more. There's also the problem, the Tigers had the same thing where the Tigers are waiting to see what will happen as Alex Lang starts to work his way back. What will happen once Tyler Madison has, enough innings under his belt and starts, getting back to Toledo and looking like maybe he can help you. All the other teams are thinking the same way. So, you don't want to be the one who's paying top dollar for the hot hand right now, who isn't going to be good another 3 or 4 weeks from now. You always want to wait as long as you possibly can and try to get through this stretch without having to, deal how you leave for a reliever somewhere or some damn thing. They can pick up cheap relievers. They can pick up Carlos Hernandez and expect that he's going to pitch sort of like Greg Soto used to, where he'll be great one day and the next day he won't be able to, hit the side of a barn, which is pretty much how it goes with him. But the Cardinals aren't trading Brian Helsley right now.
Yeah. Or, for that matter, you can get luck like Brian Baker for the Orioles, who looked really, really damn good. I was like, who the hell is this guy? Because I personally know Brian Baker, a friend named Brian Baker. I'm like, they call him Bake Show. That's why funny. Same nickname, too, and everything. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? But I like what Adam said here. And he says that Devers trade was very Luka Doncic-esque. And it was, because it was one of those things where it's just like, we just need to get rid of him. And why? There's no... Rafael Devers could have gotten you a 2 or 3 top, or maybe I think 2 top 100 or top 50 prospects in a system easily. Yeah. And here we are. You're essentially trying to do everything as efficient. I like what the Athletic said, and basically call it like Wall Street style, like efficiency. Like it was a. I mean, when your scouts are calling you out saying you're FM flake and everything and what have you, and you're stiff, there's probably something to be said about that. I mean, Boston fans right now, you got rid of a once in a generational lifetime talent, Mookie Betts. Now you get rid of the last portion of that, and what do you got to show for it? Like what the hell? It's just there's a lot of it just doesn't make any sense. And I know
couldn't happen to a better team.
Oh yeah, oh no, it's true. I mean, I'm not gonna forget about 2014 or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I mean, Boston's, that sucks for Boston. But I'm not gonna say anything bad about Boston because the Lord knows their fan base is just gonna, they're like just the biggest bunch of trolls out there. You can't say anything bad about Boston. Good Lord.
Yeah, and you just don't like to see it in general, just because of the way, I mean, it is like the worst example of what's going on with front offices and trying to turn them into, kind of corporatizing them, worrying a lot about efficiency because you don't want this many analysts, but we need to get this much data out of these analysts. The more and more that stuff goes on, the more you start killing the creativity and the teamwork that goes into it. There's something to be said for efficiency, of course, but at the same time, destroying the culture inside your organization to where people might self-sabotage you is very bad business. And especially in baseball. I mean, this isn't Palantir or something.
Yeah, it's not. It's not even like it's not a whatchamacallit. It's not like an accountant firm or something like that. It's not like that's the thing. Like it's where I think people that are who are in the sport, like whatever sport it is, the option, like where the data, everybody calls the data nerds and all that, whatever. 2013, 2014. Thank you, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah. I didn't. Whatever. I let it go.
Yeah. Thank you, Brandon. You know what I meant. But no, somebody falling into right field. We all know that. Maybe I'm too traumatized to remember the correct year. No, but it is a thing where the data, like people always say, nerds are ruining the game. You always hear that stereotype. Yeah. In this case, it's just funny because Craig was in the sport. I mean, he was a reliever. He was a pitcher. So you'd think there would be a little more, okay, there's going to be some more baseball people involved, kind of like what the Tigers have right now. And you're not running that way? I mean, that's kind of a little bit baffling to me.
Yeah, I mean, the Tigers seem to have achieved kind of the best of both worlds, where they still have tons of scouts.
Yeah.
So they're scouring small schools. They're scouring the Frontier League. They're scouting, the Mexican League. They're scouting in Asia and doing a lot better, collecting talent that way, but still using tons and tons of data. They have the analytics team built up just like everyone else does. Jeff Greenberg, this seems to be kind of more his specialty as the data architect type guy. But yeah, I mean, if you turn your whole place into a McKinsey consulting firm where you just have guys coming in, firing people because we don't know what they do. I mean,
bean counters.
Yeah. I mean, like maybe the Doge effort would have gone better if they had, had more time to understand what they were trying to do in there rather than just a bunch of people,
National Park Services. We don't need that.
I know, and then having to hire people back. Like that stuff can happen when you completely ignore the institutional knowledge of an organization. And we don't even want to get into politics, but it's a problem for them. And at the same time, they do have a good farm system. We see the talent that the Red Sox have. Garrett Crochet is one of the top 5 pitchers in baseball. Brian Bello is pretty darn good. They've got Aroldis, at least, who I would never trust in the postseason in a late game playoff situation because it's just so often not worked out. But shout out to Rajay Davis. But they have some things going for them, and so who knows? I mean, they could turn right around and trade Jordan Hicks and Tibbs and whoever else at the deadline to get something to try to win. I don't really know what they're going to try to do on that score. But to bring it all the way back, I mean, you can look at the Pirates this week. You can look at the Marlins. You can look at the Rockies. Like these teams are out of it. Yeah, you can consider poaching some of their talent and trying to steal something from them. And I would hope that Scott Harris and his staff is on the ball with that and looking as hard as they can right now. What would David Bednar cost? I don't know. So we'll see how it goes. But we know how this front office operates, and they're loath to give up talent. They want to try to figure it out internally. And I'm sure for the next 3 weeks and change until the All-Star break, they're going to try everything they possibly can, short of having to make a big trade. So, I mean, I just wouldn't expect anything like that. Post All-Star break, when we actually know for sure what we need and there's no other needs popped up, yeah, I'm going to be screaming, to go get the best reliever possible, to try to get yourself like another lefty that can be used as a starter and a reliever, and, to try to hunt a bat that you can fit in there somewhere, if possible. And who knows, maybe Howie Lee has been swinging the bat pretty well when he's not getting hit in the face. Maybe he takes a big step up over the next month and we start looking at him as an option to mix in there. But that's how they think. They're going to be thinking internally, at least as much as they are hunting, through other teams for options for trades right now.
Yeah. I mean, the one guy I'm going to look at this series that is not David Bernard, because I mean, I think is he in Indianapolis, right? He's in a AAA team right now.
I don't even know. I just pulled the name.
Well, no, I mean, a guy who I would love to have is a guy like Dennis Santana, who's having a really good year. That guy got a chase rate of 98%. He's a 98 percentile, 36% chase rate. He's got. I mean,
that works.
Yeah, that works. His walk rate is only 4.3, so that'll work. So he has a fastball, cutter, sinker, and a change. So I don't know, that guy. That would be a possibility. I mean, if I'm looking at the Pirates right now as a trade partner, of course, I mean, no more Joey Wentz. He's in Minnesota now, I think.
Yeah. one of the SB Nation has all the chats between all the different sites, and the Minnesota people were immediately like, "What do you guys think of Joey Wentz? Is there any chance of a fix?" And I was like, "Oh, brother, sit down, pour yourself a little whiskey, and let Uncle Brandon tell you all about it." Yeah. Yeah. I think he is with the Twins now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that, trying to find someone who has options is another thing that they would love. They don't want to just pick up a guy and have to use him or cut him. They were in that situation with Brebbia. Most of us didn't really love the Brebbia signing in the first place, but I just figure he was cheap and a target of opportunity, and they just thought like, we can probably tune him up a little bit. That's the way they think about it. And until they're forced to make a big move, I'm just sure that they won't. So,
but by the way, Matt Demcoli, thank you very much for the 1999. Please say something nice about Nate Cornejo and Derek Scram. But hold on, let me do this first though.
Off the Frickers building.
And a nice little
exquisite.
If you want a Nate Cornejo reference, you know what? Okay, let me tell you a story a little bit. I'll say something nice about Nate Cornejo. So when Nate Cornejo came up, I remember the big hype behind him because Lynn Henning, again, this is a flashback to, this is a period of time where I was not in the Tigers, like the Tigers at that point. I graduated from high school, and I was burned out. I watched so much bad baseball in the 90s, I was done. I was like, I'm going to take a couple summers off from 2000, 2002 to 2000, probably like 2003. I barely watched Tigers. I watched them, but I wasn't watching them every day, especially after the Juan Gonzalez thing. Nate Cornejo is the next, putting up. This is before I understood stats better. I'm looking at win-loss. Oh, wow, he's 12-3 with ERA at 2.68. He's doing really well in Erie. He's going to be the next wave of this Randy Smith pitching, all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And came up and just 7.3 ERA. Just was hittable. I should have looked at his numbers. I should have looked at his numbers better. That in 154 innings pitched, he only had 127 strikeouts. The K per nine wasn't there. I didn't understand that then. And I got so caught up because Lenny was like, oh, yeah, he's winning games. And I'm not blaming this all on Lynn. Don't get me wrong. It was also my naivety as well. But that is my Nate Cornejo. Dick Scram was one of those guys where I always heard about him. He was always on a top 5, top 10 Tigers prospect list according to Baseball America. And I never seen him play. I'm like, who the hell is Dick Scram? And, it might as well go with an obscure reference such as like, oh boy, I'm trying to think of like infielders that were always highly rated. Danny Worth was up there as well. But anyway, thank you for the 1999. I appreciate that. But
the classic like versatile, scrappy infielder who's eventually going to hit for power.
Yeah.
I mean, you heard that about Harold Castro coming up too. Like, oh, this kid's a pure hitter. He's going to hit 300, and eventually he's going to figure out how to hit 20, 25 home runs.
Yeah. There's always a bit. that was always the same thing with like a guy like Ryan Rainburn, not Ryan Rainburn. I'm trying to think of. There was another guy too that was that was an outfielder that was from Texas. Oh God, I'm gonna blank out on who this guy was. I'm trying to think of that Erie, like 2001 Erie squad that had like a.
Oh God, forget it. I got nothing.
No, it was around like I was thinking of Andre Torres. Andre Torres was another guy. Like I'm as an obscure reference there, who ended up being a giant. Ended up being a serviceable player for the Giants later on. So, but yeah, thank you again. If you want to donate a couple bucks, that's also you can do that way too. The super chat features there. Silky Johnson suggests Garrett Clevenger. That's not a bad idea either. I mean, the Rays are coming. They're going to Tampa after this series, so we'll get a chance to see them too.
No one wants to trade with the Rays, but I wouldn't worry about it so much as people used to.
yeah. For that matter too. Bo Burrows, by the way, who's only 29. Brandon, as I found out, Bo Burrows. Steven, thank you for reminding me about Bo Burrows. I did see him pitch for Altoona, and it was weird because I looked him up. I'm like, oh, maybe he's in 30. No, he's 28, 29. He's geez, oh Pete, like so.
Yeah, he was 18 in 2015. That was the first draft I ever like seriously covered. And we like Burrows, but we also kind of thought like, well, he's not that big, and is he already maxed out? Well, it turns out he kind of was.
Yeah, turns out he wasn't. I'm glad he don't get me wrong. I'm glad that he got a chance with Pittsburgh, and that's really good for him. So speaking of the Pirates, by the way, they will come into town for a 3-game series starting tomorrow, 6:40, and 1:10. As it is safe to say, pitching chaos is back in full effect. Somebody mentioned earlier, Javi Baez is 5th among All-Star votes, and All-Star, you can vote for the All-Star votes now on, you go to Tigers.com or wherever you want to, shameless plug there, and start get that going. So, it's good to see the Tigers are representing pretty well. I think McKinstry's trending pretty well at third base too, voting wise. So, which
is so funny because the honest to God's truth is that Zach McKinstry probably deserves it as much as anybody on the roster. So good for him. He's been amazing. I've really been pretty surprised and impressed.
Yeah, and I thought there would be some sort of drop off, and there has not been. And at this point, it's really good to see because the Tigers have needed third base production, especially when I get to Toledo here in a second, where it's not looking pretty for one Mr. Ace Young, who went 1 for 18 on the week.
Yeah,
1 for 18.
That ball.
Oh, not that one. Let's see here. Yeah. So as we mentioned earlier, Olsen, no changeups in his rehab of assignment. The rest of the rotation, Enos, who I think will get some consideration, has pitched okay since he got back. But again, Melton, he's pitching relief. But I think there's going to be an adjustment, like I said, with the balls. So I really think that there's something to that, and I will stick with that.
Well, wait, he's not pitching relief yet. We just expect that he will.
Oh, no, because it says here he pitched the 4th and 8th.
Yeah. He came in after the rehab appearance.
Yeah.
So but that's why. I don't think they've decided to do that yet. I just expect it at some point.
Yeah. No, you're right. There's but as a team, so thanks to Chris who did the tracker before he passed out the night. As a team, hit 151.
Yeah.
And the strikeouts were just, it was really bad. But even Malloy kind of settled. Malloy's been playing first a little bit, so that was a good sign to see. But yeah, Margot 1 for 12. Verling in rehab, which is good to see. He was I had a chance to talk to him last week. He was in good spirits, but Gage Workman has fallen down to earth hard. 1 for 17 last week, and I was I tuned in a little bit to Toledo. I was more focused on West Michigan as they're trying to clinch. And honestly, Brandon, I was just like, I can't do it. It was the most brutal week of Toledo baseball I've seen all year.
Well, and the thing is, and the Storm Chasers aren't very good. They lost Jock, and we're talking about how the Kansas City Royals are having meetings and, trying to get their act back together. They're having meetings. Meanwhile, the Storm Chasers are just wrecking the Mud Hens, which, the Mud Hens are not a juggernaut, but I certainly did not expect that. So, yeah, that was not what you were looking to see. Not what you're looking to see this week. And for guys who were trying to audition their way up to the Tigers, while they do have some opportunities, not ideal. So, and yeah, I mean, the one good thing, I guess, other than, a few individual guys looking good, was that, Howie Lee came back from getting hit in the face and looks fine. I mean, apparently the guy just has an uncrackable melon, and just like he did last July when he got hit twice in the head, shook it all off and was totally fine. So, and if you look at his numbers, actually his underlying contact numbers, Howie Lee's still doing fine. Some of the hits haven't been dropping for him. He hasn't been hitting for power, but he's still kind of tracking pretty well.
Yeah, he's, he might call him Iron Head or whatever, like some cool.
The Iron Dome.
The Iron Dome or something like that.
Yeah.
But by the way, it was just tweeted out just now that Jeff Pontus, just did a segment on Baseball America for John Henry vetoed an offer, apparently, from a different team because it required the Boston take on money. And I believe that because the guy, Henry, look, what's funny? He owns a Premier League team. I don't get how he runs that team like they're broke. It blows my mind. Mm-hmm. They're profiting hand over fist. But anyway, it's
odd. Well, the other thing, I guess, to turn to the Storm Chasers again, you look at that roster, and this was what was on my mind all week, is that it's like all the ghosts of like Royals and other teams past. They do have a whole bunch of like 4A type guys there, and they took advantage. MJ Melendez is there, Kevin Biggio is still there, Nick Prado. So like they have some guys who can hit at that level, if not anywhere else. So, maybe that played into it, but the Mud Hens still should have had a better week than that. And I'm sure Gabe Alvarez is all over them right now.
Oh yeah, no, Gabe. Yeah. Especially for how much Toledo's crawled back into the swing of things a little bit, and then just to come out there and lay a turd. I mean, honestly, it was bad watching. I mean, Steven said, West Michigan and Erie were both a better watch right now. And Lakeland, Christian Santana, we'll get to in a little bit. Mm-hmm. Christian Santana's like, hey guys, I'm still here. And that was a good sign to see. But let's continue on to the Seawolves, who are right now a half a game up on Akron as they will host Chesapeake Bay this week. That's what I'm saying, trying to go out there this weekend to check out the Seawolves, and hopefully they will clinch their fourth straight playoff berth. And they, even with the 3-3 record this year, it's the magic of watching Max Anderson continue to just rake. I mean, he's just 2 home runs, triple. He was continuing to hit well, but when Campos and Theron are struggling, that's where it kind of limits the offense a little bit, because you can have Jake Holton, the veterans there are doing well and they're enough to hold it there, but man, when those guys, you want the young guys that do a little bit, and Campos has struggled a little bit, honestly, in the last. I don't want to jinx it because he was with him and I talk, but the young bats are struggling right now.
Yeah, I mean, the team is doing fine, but as far as the actual prospects go, it's pretty much Max Anderson right now. Because Lorenzo's been fine, and we've talked before about, he's obviously had pretty gnarly personal issue to go through, and learning to hit Double-A pitching at his age takes some time. I'm more just looking to see how he closes out the season, and the same is really true for Campos as well. But Campos in particular kind of has to show us a little something more somewhere down the stretch here. But they can still win with Trey Cruz, Chris Myers, Jake Holton, Carlos Mendoza when he's there. I think he's out right now, or at least maybe was banged up a little bit because he didn't seem to play much this week. So they can continue to win and get that berth. I had a couple people kind of surprised, wait a minute. So if Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal and Brasinho and all those guys get them to the playoffs, but then they're not there. And I was like, yeah, well, that's how it happened last year. Yeah. You're just trying to pass it on to the next wave of promotions so that they get that experience a little bit. Oh yeah. You know what? Mendoza was there. He just didn't do a whole lot last week.
No, he didn't do a lot. And the question is whether or not the guys will come up. And the answer is, I don't like. It's a foregone conclusion that McGonigal and them will be there. I mean, I haven't heard a thing. And pretty much now with the spot there, maybe they'll wait till after this week. If Erie can clinch it on their own, then maybe they'll just wait till next week, which makes more sense to me, because then perhaps for those that were trying to watch McGonigal and Clark at West Michigan, because they're on the road this weekend, it might be perhaps a final chance. but it depends. I mean, they're trying to bring them up together, and so I know Lynn Henning was trying to say by Tuesday, and it ended up being a whole lot of BS. So that being said, I just think that the one thing about this veteran Seawolves team is you look at the names on here with Holton, Cruz, even in terms of Pena, it's going to come down to them. If they can get it done this week, I think Akron, I forgot who's Akron playing this week, but either way, the Seawolves get it done. More than likely, you'll see that those guys come up, but it seems like a foregone conclusion. It's just so funny that they're like, well, why is he not up there? He's hitting over 400. Yeah, well, we know that, but you also have to realize like who's going to be cut in Toledo, who's going to get cut from Toledo, A, B, who's going to come up from Erie to replace those in Toledo, and C, how's that going to, those guys can in the development time like a guy like Matt Anderson. Now, you can easily put McGonigal at short if you wanted to, but it's also like, where are you going to put Clark? I mean, Clark's in center field. I mean, you could put Clark in center field if he goes up. Briseño, if he goes to first base, that makes sense because then like a guy like Myers or Holden goes up to Toledo, you slot Briseño there. Again, they have to make those moves first.
Yeah, they're right. There's always a lot of moving pieces. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we're convinced that Briseño is going to move up right away because he's still catching. He may need more time. You know, Kevin McGonigal and Max Clark are thick as thieves. They're both raking. They're the priority. So if they're ready to move up, and I think we're all convinced that they are, I don't really think that they're gonna struggle too much to figure out a way to fit them in. I mean, there are guys who can be shuffled aside for them,
right.
But it's also true that they may decide, you know, let's let Erie play this thing out. We'll give the home crowd in West Michigan one more chance to see McGonigal and Clark before they get promoted.
Right.
I can't blame Lynn because I was doing the same thing. Like, oh, you know, like after the game, you know, we'll be looking to see if Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal are packing their bags because I kind of expected it. Like I kind of expected it as soon as they clinched, they might just decide to do it, and maybe that news will come out tomorrow. But the fact that the Whitecaps are home this week, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if they gave them one more week for the home crowd to say goodbye and then move them up from there. So,
well, maybe that's why we weren't allowed in the locker room after they won, even though we've been in the locker room for the Tigers and Seawolves, and maybe that's why we weren't allowed. Yeah, they're packing. They were like, we don't want to see you guys this, and I don't remember why Dan said why, but as far as like Jake, as far as Pacheco getting moved up, it's a possibility. I mean, he's been there for 3 years now. It all depends on what they would decide to do in Toledo. So it starts with Toledo, and then everything else after that, it goes from there. But I mean, Pacheco really. I mean, let's just go to West Michigan because just might as well.
I mean, the thing about Pacheco, though, of course, is that he's still striking out a ton. It's not like he's dominating the level. He's hitting the ball hard. He's kind of managed to trim out the pop-ups and the routine choppers. And he's driving the ball, which is great. But he's still got a strikeout rate over 31% at high A. And he's, is he 22 now? Maybe he's not even yet.
I think he's 20.
Yeah, he is 22.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of thought for some reason it was in the summer, but no. He turned 22 in November. So, he's still got plenty to prove. But okay. Yeah. Fire away.
So, I mean, here's the thing, too. Like, Clark, Clark was late on velo. There was a couple, I think there was a guy, I think it was a Thursday or Friday. They faced a pitcher who was throwing 99 and 100, and both McGonigal and Clark made some good contact off that. But Chris and I observed that, like, firsthand on Friday a little bit. But Clark hit the ball pretty well. I mean, they were all hitting the ball. It was like it was watching, like, literally I don't know how to say this, Brandon. It was. The guy who was throwing was just throwing these loopy curves, and they were just like timing it, smack, gone.
Yeah.
So, the bat was hard, making very hard contact. As far as like non-alcoholic champagne for Clark and McGonigal, Charles, maybe that's why we were all allowed back there. Again, I'm still a little miffed by that, but whatever. I'm not gonna say anything more about it because it is what it is. But Castillo, like, by the way, Castillo, we had a radar gun. He did touch 96, but as I was one taking chart, I was charting him 93, 94 for the most part. And so that was it was a good thing to see. He pitched well. I mean, again, just throwing straight. He was having a hard time locating his slider, but he was able to use his fastball more. Dan with the $10. Thank you so much, Dan, for that. We definitely appreciate that. Let me put this up, actually.
That ball is gone.
Thanks, Dave.
Touch 'em all time. Exquisite.
Yeah, and by the way, so his question is, love the show, guys. Thank you very much. I've read that there's a lot of players need to be protected. Which ones do you believe will not be able to protect and should be training at the deadline? That's a very good question because they have a lot of Rule 5 decisions to make. Off the top of my head, I think Campos is on the Rule 5. It has to be set on the Rule 5, although I don't think it's going to happen. But I think that some of those guys, I think there's like 3 or 4. I think Trey Cruz is on there too. I'm not 100%.
Well, Trey Cruz is older, but Troy Melton has to be protected. It's the guys who are going to get protected are going to be the guys that the Tigers are probably going to end up using somewhere down the stretch. So you'll be able to identify them by that alone. But I think probably How You Lee too, right?
Yeah, How You Lee's on there. Yeah.
So that's where we get to. Like, we all would like to protect. I mean, everybody has their own opinion. You guys have your own opinion. I have my list. But, we all want to protect McGonigal, Clark, Brasino, Lorenzo, and certainly Bryce Rayner. But beyond that, I do think it's kind of carte blanche to, like, see what you can get for the How You Lees, the Jace Youngs, the guys who maybe are just outside the fringe. Like, I don't really know how Justin Henry Malloy is ever going to get the kind of playing time he needs to settle in at the major league level with this team.
Yeah.
But then you also have the flip side to that, which is that Harris likes his guys, and How You Lee and Justin Henry Malloy are the first 2 guys he traded for and targeted. So he may be more apt to keep those guys than some of the others. Unfortunately, the trick is that as good as the farm system is, you kind of have those top 5 guys, but there isn't that much going on, like in the upper minors at least. In general. A lot of the pitchers that we look for, Montalvo, Jaden Ham's been okay, but he's still trying to get acclimated. There just hasn't really been anybody breaking out in a big way that, that makes you think like, okay, this guy is getting near, peak value and we can get something, big for him. Ultimately, the Tigers may have to, go big to a certain degree. I mean, I don't mind if they trade one of Lorenzo or Brasino, but they better get, like everything they need for that deal, couple arms, maybe a bat. Like I want the whole tamale.
I want first division regulars with that. If they're going to trade that kind of trade prospect that minor league prospect capital, then that's what you do. And Adam, by the way, I saw Adam there. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to talk to you, Adam, on Friday when I saw you there. But yeah, it was just literally the entire time. And it was like this really annoying drizzle too. It would not go away. It was just like, it was constantly like little rain, little stuff. But it was just like, as far as like that goes, it was a show. It was a laser show of things. It
was like a spring training game where one team brought all their regulars and the other team is like trying out some guys who haven't pitched above Double-A yet, and you're just like, what is going on here? This is an absolute beat now.
Stan wants to know, where's the proof, Brandon, that Scott Harris shows favoritism for his guys over Al's guys?
I don't think there is proof of it. It's just my opinion, frankly.
No, and you know what? I will tell you this, just from firsthand knowledge, there's a little bit of evidence to that, and I could say that with confidence because you talked about How You Lee. Like just in the conversations, just little conversations here and there. It's a lot of the guys that he is that they'll belong. That there's a certain, I don't want to say glee in his eye. There's a certain glee in his eye, but
he's
getting about certain guys, and so I mean, at the same time, for as much same thing. He watches the minor leagues as much as we do, and just Stan. It's not one of those just trust us on that. Just look at the way he in conversations, just the subtle cues on things. If you pay, I mean, I know you pay attention to those things, Stan. It's a little bit easy to see there. So
this is just also how all GMs are. You know? When they got a guy, it's because they like that guy. They doesn't mean they don't like other players or other GMs guys. They were perfectly happy to sign Colt Keith and lock him up to a long-term deal because he's, their type of player. But there may be some other guys who aren't so much their type of player that we like better or that Alavila like better, etc. So, but you can't very well like give away your own guys cheaply. Like that's just not how it works. Then you look like you didn't do the best job. And Scott Harris obviously believes in his guys. Those were guys he targeted and accepted trades for. So
yeah. And as far as Jake wants to know, before we move on, continue West Michigan. Whenever they make the moves in the minors, will it be West Michigan, Lakeland guys, Erie guys, or something else? I think it's going to be a combination of Erie guys going to Toledo, a few guys going up from West Michigan. Lakeland, I think, is going to try to keep maybe. How do I see the thing about Lakeland too is they might keep a couple guys down there, but I really think that I think there's going to be like, for example, it's Christian Santana finally get a call up. I don't know. I really don't think Lakeland to me is there. I mean, there may be a couple pitchers that might fill the void there, but I think the West Michigan team in the second half of the season is going to be not as the offensive juggernaut that they were the first half, and I can say the same thing about Erie to a certain extent as well. I mean, actually, I think let me track that a little bit. I think West Michigan is going to be more pitching focused, later hitting. Whatever they get from Lakeland, and Erie is going to be, if they can have McGonigal, if McClark and those guys are going to live up to that, then Erie's offense is going to be pretty good in the second half. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Toledo, and there's a ton of guys they can release to open up the space for the Erie guys to move up. And, you'll see that. Riley Unro's been there for like a year, but they don't really have any use for him. They haven't had to use Bly Madris. It doesn't look like they will.
I think he's on the IL. I think he's on the IL too for a while too.
Right, but if they like Holton or Myers better, then he might get the boot. Brewer Hicklin, Akil Baду has survived 3 trips through waivers already. I'm sure that they would prefer to just keep him there if it's not a problem one way or the other. But the point being, the Mud Hens position player group has plenty of guys who they could release. So to move guys up through the ranks.
Yeah, and for Lakeland, the reason why I mentioned Lakeland's pitching is because the guys like RJ Sales, and they have a couple of interesting guys who are pitching very well, but the hitters, Carson Rucker, I think needs another year in Lakeland before he gets called, even get a consideration for being called up. But in terms of hitters too, it's a matter of like Pennington maybe would probably get some consideration. Frambeer, I don't know. I think he just would benefit. Another down there, Jackson Strong. I could easily see getting called up for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that. You look at that offense now with Bryce Rayner gone, and it's pretty much Pennington. It's pretty much Strong. Montia's been just kind of struggling after a pretty nice start, and he's young enough where they could probably just, like you say, just let him get some more experience this year. Maybe he moves up later on in the summer. But yeah, it's those guys, and then it's like the Frontier League guys that they picked up. Hrustich maybe goes up if they still like him. Ricardo Hurtado's been doing well, but it depends on how well they like him defensively. And then like you said, they've got pitchers who are doing well enough to move up, and that's Sales, Lucas Ellisalt. Josh Randall hasn't exactly lit the world on fire, and this is his first year, so maybe they'll hold him back a little bit. But they've got a couple guys like that they can pretty clearly promote. And yeah, I mean, I would think Christian Santana is still young, but at the same time, he's been there forever. And you would think that as soon as he gets hot, and it kind of looks like maybe he's sorted out some of the monster pop-up issues and the uppercut swing, the Mike Tyson of middle infielder swings, that maybe they'll be willing to move him up and test him at West Michigan too. But again, it's not that they're going to move everybody. The top prospects are the ones who matter. And they'll pick and choose everybody else, like who they're still in love with. And as we've said on this show with Chris repeatedly, like the system is just so much more deep with guys who actually have tools now that the decisions like that are harder. Whereas, 10 years ago, I could have cut entire affiliates rosters and we wouldn't have missed a step. But, those decisions will be tougher now. And it just depends who they favor over who they don't. Sometimes that won't be as obvious as looking at their numbers. Often, probably.
Yeah, no, and that's going to be where, for example, when the Tigers do call up a pitcher, the numbers sometimes do not look good. By the way, Charles, thank you again for the $10.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah,
off the Frickers building.
He also gets a nice little.
He's gone.
All right. His question is, what are the odds for McGonigal to reach Toledo by the end of the year? You know what? Look, I'm going to say this. I'm going to this is just a educated guess. If McGonigal gets hot and stays, I think he's just going to help Erie. If Erie clinches a playoff spot, here's what I think was going to happen. If Erie clinches a playoff spot this week, I think McGonigal stays in Erie for the playoffs to help them win a title. So I think that's what Charles. I mean, I think he has a chance to make the team out of the spring training, but they want them in winning culture. And so if Erie clinches a playoff berth and they have a chance to go for the third consecutive title, I think they keep McGonigal there.
Yeah. I'll say that there's at least some chance that if Trey Sweeney just can't get it together and the left side of the infield is still in bad shape and Kevin McGonigal is at Double-A doing what we would expect him to do, which is absolutely raking, and he's playing solid defense at shortstop, I won't say there's no chance that they might not use him, but they don't need to promote him to Toledo. Like, I mean, I understand why the progression thing is always in people's heads, but if they need him, they could call him up. If this was the Angels, he'd probably already be playing shortstop, the way they did with NATO. But I mean, I just think that unless they get to a point where they need him and they think he can actually really impact the major league roster this year, there's no point screwing with him too much. And they'll probably just let him, play out the season with the boys at Erie, and see how it goes.
Mitchell. By the way, we're gonna have Mitchell on the show here. He's over at Prospects Live, and we're gonna talk draft. We're gonna talk draft tonight with Chris, but with Chris not feeling good, I'd rather wait for Chris to talk draft because that's our bread and butter. And don't forget about our draft show. Shameless plug. We're gonna have that draft night. More details to come. But the thing is, you're right. If it would be, if you can't ignore McGonigal, if McGonigal is hitting 450 in Erie like he is in West Michigan, then obviously you're going to go, well, I mean, you can't really ignore it. I mean, if Sweeney's down to 220 or 190 or something like that, it's just, to me, it has to be like, holy cow, like, call him up, like everybody every day on the site says. But you're right, Brandon. I just think you have to really, really be, like, just make it so hard for the Tigers just go, screw it. I mean, especially because Double-A is where you see that's where your stock rises. Like, for example, Max Anderson right now is making a case that he is becoming, because now he's in the ball more pull side too, he is becoming a case to go, okay, well, you can see this guy in the big leagues. I mean, he's playing serviceable defense at second base. What is he in long term? Is he a DH long term? Who knows? But you have McGonigal, him, and if Campos can get things going, you have Clark. That's a pretty damn good lineup too, heading in the second half of the season. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, but get back to Lakeland real quick.
Well, and I'll just throw this in there. I mean, I would 100% agree. Like, I would like to see Kevin McGonigal like promoted to Toledo like now. Like, I'm good. I'm ready to see it because I think he'll handle it within like a month and be raking. So you can argue that maybe they're going to slow play him a little bit, but again, like you said, it's all going to be in the pudding. Like, if he's absolutely raking, it's up to you, Kevin McGonigal. Go up to Erie, hit the living crap out of the baseball for a month and a half, and if a need arises with the Tigers, I'll be, right there with everybody else the way I was with Jackson Jobe last year, saying, call him up, call him up.
Yeah, just for the love of God, just avoid injury. That's all I care about. Like, just McGonigal's not, when he gets injured, it's almost like a sadness comes over a lot. He's our number one. He's our number one prospect for a reason. So, by the way,
and he really hasn't been able to play that much. I mean, it's been, it hasn't been anything like debilitating, but we've had 3 injuries that have cost him, weeks or months already.
Yeah. I mean, so if you go to our website, TigersNetReport.com, go to top 39, there is a spot there. He's number 1. You can check out the prospect report there. Andrew Scott, he says we should have kept Howard Johnson. That is one of those trades that I will never. Tigers did it for, I think it was Walt Terrell they traded for, and Sparky had no patience for prospects, none. I mean, when you read the Bless You Boys book, but then when if you read, like, sometimes I'll go to newspapers.com and I'll read through the archives, and then just reading I have so many books on the Tigers, and you just realize, like, man, Sparky had no patience. You imagine him with the prospect system he has now. I mean, he technically had it. I mean, he had to play Gibson, Trammell, Whitaker. He was throwing, lefty Pat Underwood out there for a while. Like, they had, like, a young core, but he was coming in towards it by then when those guys were already graduating. So, I mean, it was one of those things where it was the team was already put together. Yeah, R1, Chris Patero over Sweet Lou. That was another one I was like, what the hell? Like, but Howard Johnson was essentially going to be the third baseman, and they didn't have another third baseman prospect for another 20 years after that. I mean, Travis Fryman technically, but he went to short.
And I mean, Leland wasn't that different. Leland, Leland had, managed all the way through the minor leagues. So he had a completely different, sense of the minor leagues and prospect development and all that than Sparky did, and thought about it a lot more, I'm sure. But, Leland was the same guy. Like when he saw Justin Verlander, he was like, yeah, give me that guy. Everybody else, is kind of irrelevant, but the guys who are ready, like get them up right now and we'll tune them up. I mean, that was just the orientation, and obviously Dave Dabrowski was exactly the same way. So the two of them, just kind of took that attitude all the way through their kind of careers together.
Yeah. Oh, Dave Torbeck. Ooh, Alan, that's a reference I haven't heard in a while. I remember too, like they were very extremely patient with Darnell Coles too. And Darnell Coles was the experiment. They also traded for, I think they traded for Ray Knight in '87, but they managed. You know what? Here's a guy real quick before I don't get too sidestepped. But Darnell Evans, at the age of 41 in 1987, playing third base, a position he hadn't played in a long time since I think he was in Atlanta or maybe in San Francisco, was going out there playing third. That's how desperate they were for third baseman in 1987. And he went out there during the pennant race and got it done at his age. I mean, that's like Cabrera playing third base at the age of 40. Like that's insane to me that Darnell Evans was going out there, and I think he led the team in games played at third because they just couldn't figure it out. The Tigers, it's still to this day. This is 2025, ladies and gentlemen, and the Tigers have had maybe a handful of homegrown third basemen. Maybe. I mean, Inge doesn't count because technically he was. I mean, he ended up being a catcher, but Castellanos, I know, people are going to give me the obvious references, but how long have they stayed around? They haven't.
The thing I'll give Inge, though, is that at least he was a third baseman.
Yeah, it's true.
Nick never was. Miggy really never was either. So.
No.
Not that he was homegrown, but I mean, that entire time they never had, a legit, like, defensive third baseman other than Inge, so.
Yeah, I mean, they tried. I mean, like, Eric Munson came to mind, too. That was, anyway. So
post Fryman here,
post Fryman, and then the end to wrap things up for the minor leagues. I said Fryman, and that was about it. I mean, Tim, they didn't really have much, but here, like, so Judd Warwick, who would potentially might get a call up to Lakeland at some point, would be nice to see. The FCL Tigers are. By the way, I forgot to mention this earlier. Lakeland has a chance to clinch a playoff berth this week too. I forgot to mention this. So they are they got Fort Myers next, and they're 2 games up. So they have a chance that they also could go to the postseason too. But yeah, the FCL Tigers are tied for first with the Blue Jays, who will not go away. Zach McDonald back in the swing of things, but Cole Turney. I know we randomly get questions about, hey, where's Cole Turney? Well, he's back and he's rehabbing right now. But as far as the DSL goes, Chris Rodriguez is off to a really good start, and if you go to our Twitter account, we've been posting clips of him, so props to Chris on that. But yeah, that's Cobra had a bad week this week.
Yeah. We got our guys. Enrique Jimenez, keep an eye on him. Javier Osorio doing well, and my boy Jank Diaz is actually on a really nice run right now. So I'm curious to see if we'll get to see him at Lakeland. So
yeah, that would be nice to see. But yeah, as far as like McGonagall has an arm that stick at first to third base, I think he could play third base, but I'd rather him. I think he has more range at short than second, or more range than third.
Yeah, he can play third base better than Colt Keith or Jay Chung can. I can promise you that. Yeah. But yeah, it's not his ideal position. No. Probably.
Yeah, Suarez has been too. Suarez would have been nice too, but the Tigers, again, that's another trade. What's worse, the Howard Johnson trade or the Suarez trade?
God, I hated that Suarez trade.
That was such a crappy. Oh my God, that's.
That was bleak. That was bleak. So yeah, I mean, if we go back and kind of wrap this up with the Tigers again, left side of the infield.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I mean, if they need McGonagall, then you probably play him at shortstop. You play Baez and McKinstry at third base in a platoon, and Colt Keith mixes in there some way between first base, second base, and third base just to keep his bat in the lineup. They do something like that. But, if Trey Sweeney is swinging it a little bit better and you can use, Javi Baez and McKinstry at third base, then your needs aren't so dire. But again, it just all comes back to Kevin McGonagall. It's your move, Kevin McGonagall. Go up to Erie and just hit the living crap out of the baseball and terrorize the entire baseball world, make them forget about Roman Anthony's existence, and maybe he'll be up in the postseason. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, the bottom line is this: the reason why he's the number one prospect for a reason is because just the game on Friday, for example, was just flat out. There was a pitcher, a backup catcher, was positional hitting, and it just threw it in there and McGowan hit it. And you hear me laughing like a hyena, like, but it's just because like it was just he had a blooper earlier. It was like anywhere it didn't matter where it was. McGowan was like, psh, 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 like it was just like professionally spraying a ball across the field, and I think that when you look at a guy like that and just the ability to even like those screamers he was having the right on Thursday, it was a Thursday or Wednesday, I can't remember, where it was just line drives down the right field corner. It was like,
and all parts of the zone, all different pitches, doing whatever he wanted with them.
By the way, West Michigan outscored Lansing, I think it was like 57-16. 57-16. It was one of the 20, like, let's put this in perspective, Brandon. Essentially, the reason why, like, Rainer Castillo sat for a good 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
That's true. He did have to sit a lot.
Yeah, and that's a lot. And that's why he probably didn't go 5 innings like he wanted. Like, I guarantee you that the West Michigan wanted him to. But 20 minutes. It was one of those things it's a very special team up there, and they're going to try to do everything they can to keep things together. So we'll see what happens. Tigers again. Pirates and Rays this week. They travel to Tampa after that. The schedule does favor the Tigers a little bit, so we'll see how it happens here. We hit the mid-June mark. And, we're going to be, again, content-wise, Emily's got the notebook coming out tomorrow for West Michigan. Don't forget to check out, Jerry did another Patreon exclusive report that's up on our Patreon, so go to patreon.com, subscribe to that. I am also finishing up the West Michigan documentary, the 2021 West Michigan Whitecaps. Been putting that together and trying to, see how that goes. Like I said, just trying to put together, like trying to figure out the narration part. Because I'm also queuing in the 1984 Tigers with that, because there's a foundation for the 84 Tigers, and the same thing with the team right now. So, Charles, last question here. Can a guy go out to the bullpen again? Is that allowed?
What do we?
Yeah.
Out to the bullpen again. What does he mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to get some clear. Going to go out to the bullpen.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
No, the Suarez trade was Dabrowski's worst trade. His best trade, by the way, was Carlos Guillen. That was a stroke of genius. That's still one of my favorite trades of all time.
That's a great trade, but for me, it was still just escaping Prince and managing J.D. Kinsler at the same time. Like that was.
For a 20-minute wait.
I got you.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure of the context there.
For long innings, I mean, as long as like they can go to the bullpen. Either they can go to the bullpen, or I mean, if like he wanted to throw on the side of the bullpen, I've seen that happen.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure. I've seen it in the big league level where they've thrown like a couple pitches, but I don't think I've ever seen it in the minors. So.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it just depends on the stadium or the park, but sometimes people will actually just go up the tunnel or something, or to like the batting cages under the tunnel and just throw for a little bit, just to stay loose. There are ways to stay loose.
Yeah, they do. Like sometimes they'll even go underneath. Sometimes like they'll take swings, or sometimes they'll throw underneath the tunnel. So, by the way, So for those who are new to the show, you know what? This is another thing. I got to keep doing this. Repeating thing, like I was on a YouTube. It was like a YouTube class. Like the people that subscribe, you get a chance to take a free class. I took a free class. It was like, what do I have to learn? I realized like I don't repeat myself enough. So every Monday night, 9:00 here, whether it's myself, Brandon, or all three of us, every Monday night you can find us here on YouTube or on Twitter at Tigers Mount. So make sure you subscribe. Click that notification button. Also, if you'd like to again donate. Subscribe. There's a PayPal, and then there's a Patreon too as well that has some stuff. Like we usually put some videos out before, or sometimes we put content there that we don't put anywhere else. So, again, thank you so much for subscribing. Thanks so much for listening. And so Brandon, is there anything you want to plug for Bless You Boys coming up?
We just have a fun article for one of my new guys. Cannon's got a piece up on the contact play and why the Tigers love it so much that you might find interesting. He just kind of breaks down like the scenarios and why the Tigers are, basically convinced that with runners on base, unless there's 0 outs, by and large, they're always going to break for break for home. And you can go investigate that. I've got a piece coming out about the bullpen and options, players that we might be able to get something out of over the next month. And then I'm just trying to stall, though, because I don't really want to get into trade deadline stuff.
Yeah, same here.
It's just too early. I don't think they're going to do anything, major. And so we're going to switch over to draft mode pretty shortly as well.
Yeah.
So then it'll be draft mode in early July. And and then we'll get into trade deadline mode afterward. But these things almost go in their natural order. And right now, like speculating on trades is both like easy to just pick names out of a hat, but also really hard to like focus in on what they're actually going to do. And I kind of want to see Reese Olson come back. I want to know what they're doing, how he's going to do. I want to see how the guys that they already have in the bullpen respond. And I want to see them work through their options at Toledo, just because I know that they're going to do this. Yeah. And they're going to bring all these dudes up, and they're all going to get a little bit of a look. Tyler Owens is already here. So we'll see him with the, in the Pirate series probably, and get an idea if he's doing much better. He has been pitching better lately, but it's still, still kind of like a Will Vest light type of profile. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like draft, we definitely do some draft coverage coming up. A guy I like a lot is Devin Taylor. There's a couple names I wanted to bring up tonight. Devin Taylor. There is, I think there's Josh Hammond, the third baseman out of Wayland Christian. I know the like high school guys. So yeah, there's gonna be a couple names that I'll be writing up this week. I haven't written in about a week, so I got to start cracking my knuckles again a little bit. I wrote, and it's just like I said, just because between that and everything that's going on. But I'll be in Erie this weekend, hopefully watching the Seawolves clinch and writing up a couple of relievers. There is actually going to be a West Michigan reliever. Like we're going to be looking at some of the relievers from West Michigan. I had a chance to look at some this weekend, and we're going to break some down. And Andrew Sears too. I know Chris is big on him, and we'll go from there. So
it's hard not to love some Andrew Sears. He's an absolute madman out there. He pitches like an animal, and and that bullpen's just absolutely been dominant. It's not like there's a killer rotation working there. It's some veterans and a absolutely dominant bullpen at that level. So there's some interesting guys. As for myself, I'm going to go see Paul Skeens on Thursday.
Oh, there we go.
I'm excited about that.
That's a afternoon game, isn't it? 1:00 game.
Yeah. So
I may join you on that actually, but don't tell my work that.
Yeah, no. We would never go out on a work day. But yes, if you see a dude wearing this hat, I probably will wear it.
Yeah. I'll have to meet you down. We'll have to meet down there because we haven't. It was just if it's just you and me, we don't tell anybody where we're going. I think we'll be fine. I just don't want to have like a big entourage like last time where we're like every 5 minutes. Like, no offense to everybody, but it was like sometimes I just want to watch the game and just quietly go about it like they do in the press box. And so I'm not trying to I love talking to people, don't get me wrong, but sometimes what happens is like people like the mid swing, I'm like, let me do my thing. And
I like to just be a fan when I go to the Tigers games. So you work there sometimes. I do not, and I never had any real ambition to do so. So when I go down there, I just want to like get a shawarma and have a beer and watch Paul Skeens probably absolutely dominate.
I'm gonna honestly, Brandon, I'm probably gonna be a fan on Thursday. I haven't been a fan all season. Usually it's always in work mode. I'm always writing something, but we'll see. But it's supposed to be high in the 90s this weekend. But if anybody's gonna be out in Erie this weekend, we'll see you there. Stay close, everybody. I'm glad everybody hopefully you had a good Father's Day for everybody who plays a role in their person's life. We'll talk to you later. Have a good night, everybody.
Night, guys.